You good,
Okay,
Yvette?
so thank you everybody for being here today. I'm Yvette, Membership Director with the CRA. I'm going to turn it over to Scott in just a moment. Just wanted to welcome everybody this morning and thank you for being here. Thank you for everything that you've been doing. Thank you for being members. As you may know, when you registered, you might have seen that this is a member-only webinar. We have worked really hard since the beginning of this. We've had dozens and dozens of webinars, and most, if not all of those have been open to everybody. We felt it was really important from the start of this to open our resources as a CRA to all restaurants and the industry in general. Just as you know, we kind of get through this together, but we also don't take lightly the important role that our members play, and you know the commitment that you've had for some of you for many years as being part of the CRA. So we wanted to have this format today to have a little bit more of an intimate conversation. We want to make sure your questions are answered. We want to make sure we understand what your pain points are. I think, I think everybody here understands and knows how hard the CRA works on behalf of the industry every single day, but we also understand, we get in our world and we're working every single day. And we're sending out communications as much as we can, but we want to know the role that you play and everything that we do, and that we understand and recognize your pain points and what you want us to hear. So we're going to have that format today, and I just let you know, please feel free throughout the conversation today to put your questions in the Q&A. We still do have a pretty big group on today, but we'll work really hard to get everybody's questions answered. We're also super excited to have guest speakers today. So we have Tyler Anderson, Bill Taibe, and Juliana Pisanzio, who are going to be presenting today some of their experiences and sharing ideas and thoughts and kind of what we're all looking at as we go into colder months. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to our Executive Director, Scott Dolch, and take it away.
Thanks, Yvette. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate you guys hopping on here, kind of short notice on a Friday. I know we've done a lot of these webinars, and we try to do something a little bit different today. Really excited to have Bill, Tyler, and Juliana kind of joining us, because I know a lot of you guys have a million questions that I get constantly, which please don't stop asking them or sending me messages. I try to get back to you as much as I can, but having some of your peers on here today to kind of go through what they're dealing with. I think there's always a little bit of a venting session here through this process, but also, making sure you're not in it alone and what we're kind of dealing with. So before we kind of turn it over to kind of letting each of them probably introduce themselves and give a little bit of an update of what's going on in their world right now, I just want to give everybody a quick CRA update, because I know there's a lot of questions and kind of where we are. It'll be about hopefully 5 minutes, no longer, I hope. As we go through here, just see everyone's great faces on here. Let me go to the top. I just want to go through, hopefully my screen's working. So obviously we'll go back to our guests and I'll introduce them in a second. So just quickly, a federal update, a lot of questions that are being asked to me about stimulus, what's going on down there. We're in a lame duck period time, as you guys know, with newly elected officials still waiting on Senate races, House. You've got a president-elect. There's just a lot of divisiveness down there, still there. Typically, I don't think anything's going to happen in a lame duck period, but they are still attacking each other. They went after current Senate President Mitch McConnell yesterday. He's in the Hill being quoted as, yes, he wants to do a stimulus package, but he does not want to do the $2.2 trillion that the Democrats are asking for. So what does that mean for us? I told you guys before, and I'll continue to kind of tell you, my best guess is end of January before something gets done. I'd love to tell you it happened sooner, but understand, they're running out of days even in Congress to pass something before they kind of adjourn till you get to the inauguration in January. And then also with the fact of where Trump is still fighting challenges in the election, everything else, what will he actually even sign a stimulus package? I don't want to say it can't happen, but it's probably like 80% that it will not happen before the end of January. So don't expect a PPP or a Restaurants Act, a Restore Act, whatever you're thinking. I do hope that there is something that's going to come. I do think the rising cases across the country and lockdowns are putting more pressure right now in a lame duck period, and that could move the needle. Obviously, if there are more shutdowns, there could be something that happens sooner. But right now, if you're banking on needing another round of PPP, or you're thinking you're going to get a Restaurants Act done in the next month to 2 months, I just want you guys, I want to be honest with everybody and know what's probably really what's going to happen or not happen. So it's really my federal update right now. There's not a whole lot more to share on a federal side as we continue to talk. I was actually supposed to go to a conference leaving Sunday for Florida with 30 of my peers. That just got canceled last night. So obviously still will be in Connecticut. We're going to do it virtually, but just trying to work with national to see what other noise and voice we need to be making on a national level to try to get additional funding. But obviously, and we've done a really good job of it. I know the Restaurants Act is in a lot of these bills. I know that the second round of PPP, what that means for all of you guys, is all a part of this conversation. They're working hard, but again, it's trying to get cooler heads to prevail and put together a package that they can agree to. Isn't just about restaurants, unfortunately. Stateside, obviously, my advocacy with Nicole and myself really just has been a state conversation throughout. I know we went back to phase 2.1 a week ago. I know when we get into the curfew, you get into rollbacks, you get into private events, all these things that are playing out, and the frustrations each of you guys have. Trust me, they're warranted. I'm taking them obviously to heart. I am going to bat every single hour, every minute with this administration to make them, they can't talk out of both sides of their mouth. They can't say restaurants are safe, we have that in our numbers, and then on the flip side, we're going to roll you guys back and restrict it. And that's where my frustration lies with the administration. Is I feel like there's a lot of mixed messaging. I'll get into a story that went out yesterday that I'm trying to play damage control for our industry on a national level and even on a state level, the state report. So from an advocacy side, a couple things that have happened. Obviously, I didn't even put it in there, but enclosed outdoor structures, we were able to figure out a solution. I'm working with other states now, trying to get their enclosed outdoor structures approved. But obviously, there's a lot of ventilation that they were worried about, making sure you can use tents, greenhouses, small enclosed structures are allowed going into the outdoor side. That got approved about, a week and a half ago. Through that process. Also, I let you guys know the expanded outdoor dining. A lot of people are like, well, that doesn't really help me in a month from now. But if you use a greenhouse or use these structures on property or on patios that normally weren't your outdoor, you would have needed this. So expanded outdoor dining has been extended through February 9th. Why February 9th? That is the emergency order of the governor. He can't put out an EO beyond that date. So we got it extended, and then to-go alcohol has been extended to that date as well. So understand that those are two things we knew were going to happen, but obviously came to fruition this past Monday or last Friday when the EOs came out, that you have expanded outdoor dining. A lot of people are like, oh, my town is letting me do it till March, I'm good. Doesn't really understand that DCP, your alcohol sales are tied to the state outdoor dining expansion. So we're going to try legislatively in the early part of 2021. I would like to expand outdoor dining for the next 2 years on a recovery. So allowing you and your towns and everything else next spring, summer, and even the following year to do those things. And the towns really haven't pushed back. They love the idea. But obviously we need legislatively on a state side. So yes, you could, if the town of Norwich says to you, yeah, use that parking lot, whatever else, you can't bring alcohol out there without the DCP in the state. That's why we had to extend it through February 9th, and hopefully we'll continue to extend it as long as we possibly can. And obviously to-go alcohol. The big one that's a big understanding and frustration right now is the 10 p.m. closure, curfew, whatever you want to call it, for all businesses, but obviously specific to our industry. Understand that it was 9:30, it is now 10. I've been trying to make that, I know a lot of people have been asking just to remove the curfew altogether. Our ask, and a reasonable ask, was 11 p.m. on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It did get a little bit of traction, but at the end of the day, they followed suit with Massachusetts. Rhode Island is the only outlier at 10:30 on Friday and Saturday. And then as of 2 days ago, New York and New Jersey followed suit with the exact same closure. So it is making it a little bit more difficult to get to the 11 o'clock because of those two other new added states that have the same closures. But I understand the impact on full service restaurants the third turn. I know there's a lot of Boston area restaurants that are meeting with Governor Baker today and trying to push that through. The lieutenant governor up there is very supportive of trying to make that 11 o'clock window work. And I'm waiting to hear back from that meeting to see. And I'm actually lobbying other governors. I'll be honest with you, as members like, why am I not lobbying Lamont? I am, and his team, but everything that they keep pushing back on me is we're following Massachusetts. We're aligned with Massachusetts. So if Massachusetts goes to 11, then I'm going to put that right back in his face and say, let's do that. So I'm interested to see how that meeting plays out today in Mass, but obviously New York and New Jersey now has a fight on their hands trying to make that extended of closures. Why aren't we doing 7 days a week? Why aren't we trying to get rid of it altogether? Understand their reasoning for this is trying to temper restaurants turning into bars, trying to enforce people being home, even though I feel like the enforcement is not there. I get that. I understand your frustration as well. The only other piece to this, takeout and delivery is allowed beyond the 10 p.m. If you want to, you take out pizzas to 1 or 2 like you normally do, whatever else. But also, I'm not making it public, but I have a member call today, so I will let you guys know. Massachusetts, you have to stop alcohol sales by that 10 o'clock or 9:30. They are not doing that in Connecticut. So if you want to do to-go wine, to-go mixed drinks to go at 11 o'clock, you want to have people leave with a mixed drink as a, I make a joke, I won't point out the restaurant, but an Uncle Ned nightcap promotion that they're running. You have that ability to do that in Connecticut as of right now. That the DCD said to me, we are not following Mass on that line. So if you guys want to do to-go alcohol with your takeout and delivery to try to make up or get creative with that, you can as of right now. The last piece is the small business grants. I think everyone on this call knows my own opinion about these $5,000 grants and how much of I'll just be honest, a joke that they really are for helping your businesses. At the same time, I still don't want you not to apply. The application process started, I believe, yesterday. It's very simple. You have to have 20 FTEs or less, or $1.5 million or less of payroll in 2019 to be eligible. And you have to show 20% loss. I don't think that's going to be a problem from year over year. But understand, according to David yesterday and Commissioner Lehman in my conversation, the FTE conversation, you do not have to add part-time people together. I still haven't gone through the whole process, but according to David, let's say you had 14 full-time staff and 55 part-time staff. They're only asking how many full-time people you had. They're not looking at your W-3. So according to them, you still would be eligible. I'm waiting for someone that's over that threshold to tell me, yes, they were able to apply and it worked. So if you have that kind of threshold of 20, if you add everybody up in your W-3 and you have 28, or you have over $1.5 million, if you can go through and say, no, I only had 12 full-time staff members that were actually full-time, they allowed me to apply. The reason also why I say to apply is if there's money, this is according to David, if there's money left over in their $50 million, they're going to expand the program like some other states have done. So they might make it $10,000 grants, maybe even $15,000 grants. So get your application in, at least for that purpose. But I at least wanted to bring that up to everybody and making sure you guys know that's something. Obviously, I'm not 100% behind. But again, at the end of the day, I don't want to leave money on the table for our industry, for you guys to make sure that you're going through that process. It should be pretty seamless. From what I saw, they're trying to make it easy for people to apply and hear back from. So that is the state Small Business CARES Act program. Other things that I'm dealing with as we speak are these COVID studies and how the media is taking it. And I know I've gotten a million texts from a lot of you guys about what's going on at a state level. Let me start on a national level. Stanford and Northwestern, I guess they don't have a whole lot of time on their hands, but their epidemiologists released a study. It was more about social economic impact, and lower income people have less mobility opportunities and spacing. So they are actually more susceptible to having COVID and spreading COVID. That was the purpose of their study. But in that study, they started talking about that indoor dining is a huge risk based on what they saw in their data points. But understand, they use mobile data. They did it during a time when actually most of the restaurants were closed, without social distancing, without masks. And they looked at the 10 most highest dense population metropolitan cities, which we don't even have one in Connecticut, which I'm pushing back on. Luckily, our media here haven't asked me about this study, but obviously I've got national data as well to kind of debunk a little bit their findings. But again, it's obviously doesn't help consumer confidence. And then yesterday, a bomb got hit with the DPH and the governor's administration releasing a cluster report about the fact that restaurants are, a source of the highest number of clusters and a source of infections of this disease. Understand that, I'm having to follow up with media calls right after this call. I actually need to talk to our new deputy epidemiologist and figure out, because if you look at her quotes in the Current, it's about restaurant workers in this report. Like I said to Channel 8 last night, I would love to know what other businesses have full-time employees going into work. Everyone is telecommuting. They haven't pushed people back. Go into downtown Hartford, go into New Haven and tell me. So it's hard that they can say, hey, it's a restaurant workers. We represent 10% of the workforce. But again, this is not about patrons. This is not about you're getting sick by going into a restaurant. This is about their studies of going to DPH and finding out that, hey, it's a lot of back of house, and you guys are dealing with this, with your line cooks or your dishwashers, where they live, where they go back to, how they're getting the virus, and the worry you have of it spreading in your inside the back of your house of your employees. That's more where the study is. Unfortunately, the media just sees a graph and loves to say restaurant risk, as Channel 8 put out last night, or NBC is trying to, spin the document, which is not an accurate, same thing with Connecticut Insider's story today. Obviously, I have to follow up with the Current on, as you can see, their lead headline, uncover state events show virus spreading at restaurants. Like, that's all they put. They don't talk about restaurant workers and everything else. And that's the frustration I have, is because besides the fact that 50% capacity, 10 p.m. curfew, whatever else you guys are dealing with right now, we're dealing with the fact that everything's about consumer confidence. And if people don't think restaurants are safe, they're not going to go. And that's just a lot of the BS and the pushback I have on the governor's administration as of yesterday and this morning of, we're a partner in this. They need to be accurate. They can't send incomplete data out. They need to tell the media exactly what this means, not just, hey, here's a graph, restaurants are a high cluster, median cases. Obviously, even Governor Cuomo yesterday sent out I think he retweeted the Washington Post study about family gatherings, social gatherings has been what our spike has come from and continues to go from. And that's why Thanksgiving is trying to be remote. And I'm trying to work with our administration to have them follow suit with his own tweets, with the governor's tweets, with their own messaging, to make sure, because a week ago he just said restaurants are not the cause, schools are not the cause. But obviously then they turn around and part of their administration sends this out. So as I told Bill this morning, I'm pretty fired up because I wasn't even given a heads up for this. And now I'm just having to react and deflect a little bit, but also make sure the media understands what's really going on. So listen, I do think before we get into kind of conversations and questions, we could talk about safety and what each of these restaurants and Tyler and Juliana and Bill are dealing with, of keeping their staff safe, the daily health checks, all the way down to how they're rearranging their restaurant spaces and keeping people out of close contact to 15 minutes and doing it differently. We have to continue to promote that. You have to use your social channels to continue to showcase safety in your restaurants without question. We have to kind of push back. The media need to do a little bit more digging, in my opinion, when they tell these stories and understand all the efforts you guys are making to keep people safe. So, these are the safe operating guidelines. You guys have gone through this, but if we can help through that process, a lot of you guys, I know Tyler in particular, I use Tyler as an example, has a whole, I'm going to say manifesto, but he's got a whole like eight-page report of how they're running their restaurant for their employees that they've shared publicly, which is awesome, but also they're following it and they're continuing to update it as they go through and learn new things. And that's really, really important, that I think everyone needs to take that to heart as you look at, if you think COVID's not going to hit your restaurant because it hasn't yet, you're sorely mistaken. You need to prepare how you're going to manage that process. We're here to help through that, but also, this is a community spread. This isn't a targeted spread right now. We're averaging almost 5% over the last week to 2 weeks of how many people are getting the virus. So I'll stop there. Obviously, questions in the chat, feel free. But I want to introduce everybody and give them kind of an opportunity to let them really talk, because that's really the purpose of the rest of this webinar today, is allow our leaders in our industry and restaurateurs an opportunity to kind of share their story, and also just answer questions each of you guys have as we try to prepare for the winter, and then I can take side questions if they are. So I will start just as the order is there. Tyler Anderson is our first guest speaker. Tyler is a former board member. AJ, his partner, is now on our board. But Tyler, since my 2.5 years, has been so instrumental in helping our partnership with the CRA and growth. And obviously, you can see there, I couldn't get the swiggly over the end there, Tyler. But obviously, with Millwrights, Torreno, to take you, Taku, how do I say it? I'm sorry, you're on mute, Ty.
Tacos and barbecue.
Taku is a concept he did over at Millwrights, and then obviously Bar Pina in Hartford. So Tyler, first and foremost, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
And then our second guest is Bill Taibe. Bill from down in Fairfield County with Don Mamo in Westport, Kaiwani in Westport, and the Welk in Westport. Bill joined our board last December, so almost hitting a year. But Bill has been instrumental as well in being a voice down in Fairfield County for us, and continuing to talk every single day. He also decided in the middle of the pandemic to take Jessup Hall, if you guys know that restaurant, and turn it over into a Mexican cantina and Don Mamo, because why not, as Bill said, but obviously dealing with that and trying to reopen a new brand and a restaurant in the middle of this pandemic. So Bill, thank you so much for coming on today as well. Bill, you still there? You might have.
Hey guys, there you go. Sorry, I felt like I got knocked out of it for a second. Thanks, Scott.
No problem. And then last but certainly not least, yeah, you're good. You're good, Bill.
There we go.
And last but certainly not least, Juliana Pisanzio. Juliana is from La Maria restaurant down in Old Saybrook. I got a chance to know Juliana over the last year. We've gotten closer. Actually, her cousin Michael Marchetti is on our board, and he has obviously a couple restaurants down in Fairfield County. But Juliana has been holding her own with her husband and herself in Old Saybrook, doing some amazing things at La Maria. So Juliana, thank you so much for coming on as well.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me. It's really a pleasure. Thank you.
All right, so I'll start just with a kind of a basic question. I'll start with you, Tyler. Just we are about to hit 8 months. We're 3 days from 8 months since the shutdown. What have you seen? What have you learned over this time for you as a restaurateur, owner, also chef? And what is your biggest, I guess I'll start with, what's your biggest fear right now on November 13th?
I mean, we've all seen a lot. The good part about this, one of the only good parts, is that we're all in the same boat. And so it's, you're sort of playing from an equal playing field. Some are more fortunate than others. And I think it's just simply a luck thing in a lot of situations. Like for me, I was very fortunate to have the space that I have, especially at Millwrights. And that's helped us out quite a bit. We've been able to exploit that to its fullest potential. My biggest fear is that when this started and we got shut down and had to lay all our employees off, we sort of made a vow that we would attack this thing aggressively, that we would be aggressive with our moves, that we would spend a shitload of money to try to get through it, to keep cash flow going, that we wouldn't play conservative. I'm not that good at doing that anyway. So my biggest fear now is getting shut down. Probably like everyone else.
I agree.
Well, that makes it answer the question for Bill and Juliana. All right, so just an update for everybody too, because everyone's freaking out thinking that, what they're hearing, everything is rumor based. Understand. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you that we're going to be, shutting down or staying open through this pandemic. But at the same time, like a lot of things have happened literally they happen by the minute, by the hour. Obviously, San Francisco early in the week shut down their indoor dining. Port Chester, New York, which is right on the line there in Greenwich, fell into the orange zone, and they've closed down indoor dining. You do outdoor dining with four up to four people, but it's really takeout and to go. A lot of people are calling me like, is that what's going to happen here? I'm hearing Thanksgiving's our breaking point. I'm hearing next week we're going to shut down. Right now, from the administration side, I have not heard shutdown. I have not heard rollback. I've heard, yes, the number and the metric that they are looking at is hospitalizations. That number needs to worry all of us. All right. Understand we're at 600, I believe, in 14 hospitalizations as of right now. That number was 300 2 weeks ago. It was 75 5 weeks ago. And where that number goes, so you understand from a public health standpoint, they feel for every 1,000 positive cases, there's 150 hospitalizations behind it. So we've seen 1,500, 3,300, 2,000 positive cases in just the last 5 days on certain days of positive cases. So that's where public health is banging the drum is so loud to the governor right now, because they are worried about not having enough beds, not having enough, where this goes, how do you get control of it, how do you tamp it down. And the other challenge I have is the Republican states, actually, if you guys follow the news, if you go into the Midwest, South Dakota and North Dakota is insane. Like literally, I think it's at 18% positivity rate in both states. And it's been that way for like 3 weeks. Their governors aren't doing anything. They're kind of burying their head in the sand. But it looks like, the Democratic governors, because of the Northeast, and we were kind of the first to shut down everything else, that's the tipping point. Like, I'm keeping a close eye on New York, Rhode Island, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania side, obviously Massachusetts, New Jersey, what Murphy might do. Like, unfortunately, if something goes, it could become a domino effect. And I don't want to sugarcoat it to any of you guys. I'd love to tell you that we're going to stay in phase 2.1 for the next 3 months. We're going to keep about 5%. We're going to manage hospitalizations, and we're going to be okay. I don't want to lie to anybody. I don't know that. And also I don't get a chance to say, no, we need to stay open because we are safe. They're looking to try to, if they were to shut down, I think they're going to shut down all businesses, probably all schools. They're talking about maybe keeping K-5 open because of where they feel like, and Scott Gottlieb was on their press conference yesterday talking about that a little bit more. But I'm not trying to instill fear in everybody, but understand their metric is hospitalizations. And that's the metric that they feel like if they can't get control of, they're going to have to do something. And yes, they've already done something in 2.1, but where this could go, and also the other states around us, unfortunately, are in the same boat. Massachusetts increases, the Rhode Island increases, the New Jersey, New York. It is moving. The curve is spiking up in the Northeast more so than they expected. And that's what I need you guys to prepare for is what that could mean for your business. Being prepared for takeout and to go and delivery. I know you guys have already dealt with this for 2 months, but I just need everyone to understand. I don't want to be blindsided if, God forbid, it does happen, because it's not where we were 6 weeks ago with, we were at we had a 2.1% day, and oh my God, everyone was freaking out. Like, we just hit 6.7 and 6.1, and hospitalizations have gone up, I think, 300 in the last 5 days. So that's the real news right now that everyone needs to be aware of. And I want to make sure we're clear that, no one is saying to me as of today, hey, Scott, prepare for this, but I need everyone to prepare for it, knowing that, if we can't flatten this curve, we can't start to flatten it a little bit or bend it down on a hospitalization front. That's where they're looking at. And they're comparing us to Europe, not to the Midwest or the South. And what did Europe do? They shut down restaurants, bars, cafes, everything, again, on a lockdown standpoint. So whether that solves the problem, I get that a lot of people will say it doesn't. I'm just telling you, I'm fortunate enough to be in that room and hearing those conversations for the most part, or at least secondhand. And those are the real. It's not so much 6% positivity, 4% positivity. Oh my God, we had 2,000 positive cases. It is not that. It is about the hospitalizations in the beds that they are concerned about. And that's really where they are right now. So I apologize for taking over that question, but I know that's your guys' biggest fear, everyone's biggest fear. All right, so just wanted to answer that question, and I'm going to go to Bill for a second. So Bill, can you talk a little bit about, your restaurants are known, as Tyler as well, James Beard nominated, you've been successful throughout this, but you're known for full service fine dining. When you had that 2 month shutdown, or even if you have to look ahead and try to increase to go and take out, what have you done differently, and what are some of the things that you're looking at even to change from maybe what you did in March and April? Looking ahead, because obviously to go and take out is still going to need to be a big part of your winter if we stay open or not.
Right. Yeah. It was funny. I was talking to someone this recently. I think anybody that's on this call could probably relate. When this thing first hit in March, it was exciting, and terrible word to use, but it kind of, our neurons kind of fired away, and we all had to kind of come to fight or flight mode and come up with new interesting ways to sort of to get through this thing. Here we are 8-9 months later looking at it, and I think the fatigue is setting in where we've been fighting for so long. What do we do next? Fine dining, I know Tyler firsthand is going through the same situation. Fine dining doesn't relate very well going into to-go boxes, so you have to sort of rebrand, think about what you're going to do. That's how we ended up switching Jessup to Don Memo. When this thing hit, all of a sudden Colony naturally went into a to-go box. It's what it does. The Welk had such a strong holding in Westport that people had their favorites they wanted to have, and we shrank the menu, and we kind of thought about what would make them happy eating at home in comfort. But we had Jessup Hall that I had spent the first 2 years not being thrilled with. The last year of the process, really working hard to streamline and get it to a restaurant that we were proud of, to then all of a sudden quickly flipping into to-go boxes again. And the restaurant flip is what helped most. We had people's eyes on us. They were watching our social media. Social media is really powerful. I think it was even more powerful through the pandemic because people were looking for real-time news. So as we sort of, pushed ahead, we decided we wanted to kind of mimic the Colony model and go into more of a food concept like Don Memo that works better for to-go. One of the things I would just add, as we look ahead now, I think almost the unknown is easier to deal with than the known. And you said before, I think we're all trying very hard to keep our restaurants open through the next couple months. I'm concerned about to-go, and will people have the same sense of support that they did when this thing first happened? I think our communities really rallied around us. I know, firsthand in Fairfield County and Westport and Weston and Fairfield and Norwalk, those communities really stood up and took care of us restaurants. But at what point, does that sort of start to dissipate just because of financial reasons? It gets expensive to eat to-go restaurant food all the time. So, I think we're all we're looking to put family packs together, I think, like everybody else. But at this point, I think just streamlining and figuring out, putting a plan together. I would end it with this, Scott, putting a plan together, because if and when the back to phase one does hit, and I think it's inevitable. Hopefully not, but I'm preparing for it. What concerns me, and I'd be curious to see if you had heard anything, what happens to our staff, and will they have the same benefits that they had back in March when we had to lay off a group of people? So I think we're all in this thing together, and I'd be curious actually to get some clarity on that.
I can relate that question it's been brought up, and I think we're trying to push on a state side for the grants. This whole shared work program, I know if you guys have taken advantage of it, yes, it can work, but if your restaurant doesn't exist, there is no shared work. But yeah, to the unemployment conversation and the dollars, especially in our industry specifically, I could tell you it's happening in DC, but I know at the end of the day, like I think our noise has to be a little louder down there, to that point, Bill, about that, because obviously that's what's going to happen. If we have to roll back to phase one, all of our employees go back on unemployment, and you're going to see the service industry take a huge hit, as I try to of that. So I need to keep pushing that. I think it's a great question, Bill, that we need to use to our advantage, because that's kind of even the Boston area restaurateurs are using that for the 11 o'clock right now with Governor Baker. They're like, I lose the whole second turn in Boston. So in their opinion, the late night. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I am concerned about laying more people off, and will there be support for them, especially in our industry specifically. Thank you, Bill, for that, obviously that update and kind of what you guys are thinking of. Juliana, I know in Old Saybrook, you guys have gone through a lot in renovations of the restaurant and everything else. And then obviously the pandemic hit, and then how you guys have dealt with that. But I guess one of the questions I have is, being an Italian restaurant, I feel like you guys have had to juggle a lot with, you guys have really created a really cool to-go atmosphere Then you also expanded outdoor dining. You had to bring in a little bit of indoor dining, but how did you manage all of that with your restaurant? And what are you learning as you continue to move forward with, having not that big of a kitchen, but having such a to-go purpose, but also still trying to service the customers that are coming out for the restaurant?
Well, I mean, it's been a challenge. I mean, obviously, like everyone else, when March 16th rolled around, it was like, you got sucker punched because you're being told you have to shut down. And, it was such a weird process for us because we're fine dining as well. So at that moment, you're thinking, my God, are we just going to be able to do takeout? Which our restaurant wasn't really known. I mean, we did do takeout, but not at a large volume. So we had to rethink, like Bill said, our whole menu, what was going to be good to go. I mean, we were doing stuff like osso buco at a higher price. Now you're like, we don't know what's going to happen. Also, remember back in March, the supply and demand, you couldn't get a lot of product in. And that was really rough, and prices went up for us, even, being a restaurant buying wholesale stuff, you couldn't find things, or, things were a little bit more expensive. So that was rough. So you had to tailor a menu where you weren't, you had to be a little bit conservative of what you were going to do for your pricing and your cost and how you were going to survive. So that was hard. So we just streamlined our menu in the beginning to see what we could do, how people would respond, food that would travel well. So there was that. And, we had to incur all these extra costs of, to-go containers and things like that. So that was challenging, but, we live in a great area. It is seasonal, but because of pandemic, people haven't really left the area. So that's been great. We've had people that just came out, rallied, supported, were ordering, 1, 2, 3 times a week with us, and getting gift certificates every time they called in an order, which was amazing. I mean, my husband and I probably cried every day from the support, because it was something so unexpected. And when you have, you become part of this community and people really rally for you. And I think as restaurateurs, we should be really grateful that we do, cultivate these great, relationships with our patrons, our staff does. So that was really, cool. And then the outdoor seating, we took our time on that. I think it was like the end of May when they gave us permission to do that. We explored different venues, like we were going to rent tents, and that became very expensive. So at that point, we researched and figured out that it was cheaper actually to buy a tent. So we started with one tent, a 40 by 20. We fortunately own our property. So we have a large parking area. We have really great customers who donated stuff. Like we had Manafort Construction and B&L, who is right behind us, that they actually donated and gave us those barriers for outside, which was amazing. And we took our time decorating, and we wanted to provide an environment because, we wanted to also give thanks to our patrons who supported us during that shutdown of curbside, which was so stressful. And they came through for us. So we wanted to provide a really cool environment for people to sit outside. And I think when people see that, how you're changing, how you're working hard to do that. Bill said before, social media was really awesome for us. I hate talking on camera, but we did live feeds to update people what we were doing with curbside, what we were doing to plan for outdoor dining. So that kind of creates a buzz for you, which is great, and it generates excitement. And so outdoor dining went great for us this year. People loved what we did, inside decorating. So it didn't feel like you're eating a parking lot. We had put down carpeting. We put outdoor area rugs. People love that. And we did so well that we were able to continue curbside, which we do, and it's still going strong. And we were able to buy a second tent. And so we did use some of our indoor tables after that, because, you just are like, how much more do I have to spend? So we got really creative with the spaces that we had, and, just made sure that we were, like Tyler, just putting everything out there, how you're sanitizing, how you're cleaning, what you're doing to keep your staff safe, your customers safe. Those things really matter for people. Curbside, no one's allowed to come in. It's still strictly, you order, You pay over the phone. We're going to an online system soon. And we deliver the food to the car, and we have like a route where people have to, circle in through a certain area, and people love it. It's no contact. We throw the stuff in the trunk for people. We tell them to put a box in the back to secure their packages, and it's still working well. Right now, what we're seeing though is with the, cooler days, we do have a forced air heating system in the tent, because you can't have open flame in tents because it's a fire hazard. So it's still cool because we do still have like 2 panels open, but people have been creative also that still want to dine outside. So that's been really good. I think you just have to continue to be creative and just try to seek out any way you can to, energize your customer and energize your staff too. I don't know. I hope that's helpful.
No, Juliana, it's great. And obviously, for anybody listening in, I think you guys have all done different things, but having these 3 on here today, I think their creativity and I think it's about adaptability, how you can adapt through difficult times. I think all of you guys, that's what I try to share on the media every day, which amazes me. You guys are fighters. You're not willing to just, just stop. You're going to be like, okay, well, that doesn't work. Let me try this. I have to go and do this. So speaking of that, I know Tyler, as probably the adaptability is probably his middle name of what he's been trying to do through this pandemic. But can you talk a little bit, Tyler, about, you said the space at Millwrights, but to explain it to probably some folks that don't know with TAQ and everything else of what you're trying to accomplish. You had the mobile truck, and then you brought that in, and obviously the greenhouses, and before that, even the outdoor expanded dining with the tents and the picnic tables. So talk a little bit about, the changes and adaptability you've had through this process.
Sure. So when we, in March, when we were shut down, we took 5 days. We didn't do anything for 5 days, and my wife was about to divorce me because of that. So I had no choice but to get back to work. I also kind of like it as well. And we sat down as a group and we decided we would take a look at what our advantages were in the situation. Our advantages were that we're in Simsbury, so far away from urban center. We have space. We have a very strong team, and we're willing to push gray areas on the rules at all times. So as all of these new things came out, we would push to the edge of what was allowed. Because I don't think, no one had time to think these rules through, and we've seen that continuously, that there's not a lot of time to think them through. So not to exploit that, but to go right to the fucking edge of it is what we decided to do at all times. So we were able to put a kitchen, and also like the second thing that's good about all this is that there's been a lot less red tape to have to run through. And I think I've had to run through some recently. We've all had to run through some more recently, but it's easier to get things done that you wanted to do before. So I've always wanted to have seating on the bridge at Millwrights. So now I was able, but I wasn't able to have seating on the bridge with a kitchen out there down the path. So because of this, I was allowed to have a kitchen out there. So we bought a trailer from another group from Mercado, and we bought their food trailer and basically cooked off their trailer outside, where we were never allowed to have a kitchen before, although I'd tried. And guess what? Now we're allowed to have a kitchen out there all the time because it went well. And then we saw the advantage of having kitchens on wheels in all of this. And so we decided that, in all of this, between the hotels that we run, Millwrights, we lost millions of dollars in group business. So to try and make up, that, we started a catering company, which for some stupid reason I'd never done before. We realized this summer that how valuable that can be. So we bought this truck trailer that could was self-contained and could go anywhere, do a party like in the middle of a forest, whatever you wanted. And we've done that. And so we bought another trailer, we did all of that. And then as limits started going down in the amount of people you could have for groups, we decided to spin it into a concept I've always wanted to do, which is tacos and barbecue, two of my favorite foods. again, speaking to what the other two people on the panel said, like our food was not meant to go into containers. Millwright's food is not good for containers, but TalkU's food is perfect for containers. So we now have 2 trailers that will be doing TalkU food, one at Millwright's, and we moved the other one to New Park Brewery in West Hartford. The thought there is that we have more indoor space there, and it's a younger clientele, and a younger clientele is a little less, cares a little less about all this. And so they'll still go out, they'll still drink beer, they'll still eat tacos, they'll still eat barbecue. Also, it keeps us centrally located for delivery service. So our next step is that we've started our own delivery service. Fuck Uber Eats, fuck Grubhub. I hate that. It's the total exploitation of the restaurant industry. We all have, I think we're all a little slower than we've been. We all have good hospitable staff who has vehicles. We all carry insurance. And if those people are on payroll, they're insured for everything they do. So we're starting our own delivery company basically now. And I don't know if I answered the question.
No, just a quick question, Tyler, for you, because if people don't follow you on social, they should. You're kind of the actor, I guess, of Connecticut restaurants but your videos to that point, though, if we go all the way back to, I think that, this is more of a comment and less of a question, but I think for people that haven't gone back and seen the videos, what Tyler does is he showcases when they make a change for the better. He shows, his guests, even if they haven't been to the restaurant. And I use that as an example. I think you were the first, you installed a Ring doorbell on a stick outside at Millwright's back like 2 months in. We're like, look, and here's your parking space. And like, I felt like once that video went up, restaurants across Hartford County started like lining parking space numbers, and didn't see any Ring doorbells on sticks, even though that was awesome. But then even, your walkthrough of the, the tents and the picnic tables to the greenhouses to, inside, I think that it really shows, as I try to preach to everyone listening in, like Bill said this, the power of social media is everything right now. It's hard for me to get on the media, and I'm trying to have them go to your restaurants and tell the story and talk about safety and everything you're doing. But your social media, to be honest, greenhouses, I give Tyler the credit for how the greenhouses got approved. Because when DPH said to me, they were like, they're not safe, Scott, we don't feel comfortable, and they're banned. And I was like, wait, what? And like literally trying to deal with that. And Tyler was like, what should I do? And I was like, give me another day. And I was like, nope, they're still saying no dice. And you put that post up that pretty much just said, hey, how is this unsafe? All this I've invested, everything else. And it got over, 2,000 likes. Literally the governor saw it, and it returned to, now they wanted to have a conversation with me like, hey, Scott, can you write ventilation guidelines that we can approve? I'm like, great, let me go down and work on that. But those are things that are important, that you guys telling your story through social is vital for our industry, because I think people lose sight of that. So I applaud you, Tyler, and your whole team for what you continue to do. I know you like to make fun of yourself with them, but honestly, like everyone's like, oh, did you see Tyler's new video? I'm thinking of that, or wait, he's doing so. Those things are helpful for our industry to sometimes get a laugh, but also to see the adaptability of how you can make something work, or, oh, I didn't think of it like that, or how we could do this. So I appreciate, all that you're doing with that, to keep those, the videos are making me laugh too when they go up. So thank you on that. So shifting gears to Bill a little bit, Bill, can you talk a little bit about, in these COVID times, have you done anything different with your space as far as your staff, and like, do you have everyone at one hostess stand? Do you have different service areas? Like what do you, back of house, like obviously they're tight kitchens, like what have you looked at or learned, and are you doing things differently in the restaurants for the safety of the employees that you could talk about?
Yeah, sure. Well, we did the obvious for the customers. We put partitions up in the restaurants, which are extremely expensive, and I'm so petrified that people are going to want them there forever and completely ruin the aesthetic of my restaurant. But they're nice. We put air filters in the restaurants as well, Aura Air. I think the optics alone to make not only the customer feel safe, but our employees as well. So we have these Aura Air filters that are Bluetooth capable. We can kind of follow air quality. Do I think that they work? I'm not quite sure, but I know that they make people feel better that they're there, staff included. in all honesty, with 3 different restaurants, the biggest challenge I've had in, 3 different spaces, all thankfully within an arm's reach, but still 3 different spaces, a lot of employees, a lot of moving parts, is getting everybody to really buy in and understand the importance of close proximity mask wearing. It's really difficult for cooks, so I'm all of a sudden, unbeknownst, I would walk into a kitchen and, a mask is down a little bit, and you start to get really upset when you have to keep reminding people, put your mask on. Well, how does a cook wear a mask when he's tasting food? I is equally get upset with them when they're not tasting their food, but they need to have masks on. So it's been a big challenge. We have obviously continued to educate and talk about it. I think what's most important is each night pre-service, we would just remind each other of the situation we're in, how fortunate we've been to be where we are going through it, the community we're in, and our obligation not only to that community, but to each other as a staff. I've had those uncomfortable, unfortunate conversations with staff members after I've seen some of their activities on their Insta stories and where they were going after work on weekend nights, and having to sit down with a young cook or a server and remind them that going to the local bar or gentleman's club is probably not a good idea, because what happens is when you bring it back to the restaurants, you're putting the rest of us in jeopardy. I just think it's just a constant, consistent approach to education. We have absolutely spread out the dining rooms similar to everybody else on this call. I've had, one of the things I wanted to really make the point was, I felt really fortunate, again, as this pandemic hit and you begin to really realize how close-knit this community is in our industry, and the way the phone was ringing and people answering my call and me taking others, and just sharing ideas and concepts and talking things out. It's a difficult industry, it is, but to know that you have people where you can literally pick up the phone and say, I'm struggling with this idea. We can't seem to push this through, or, get it across the finish line. What have you guys done? And get somebody's real honest feedback and their experience on how they were doing it. It saved countless hours for us in trying to figure things out on our own. You say, Tyler's videos, I sit and watch them and they're great. And, there's other people doing it. John Nealon down at Taco Daddy, before he got on the Kill Ned Lamont train, but was putting together some really great stuff on what they were doing to make their restaurant safe and talking about it. So I think we're going to continue to learn and evolve. But just making sure, I think what's most important for us at this point is continually reminding the staff that their own personal safety is where that all starts, and then it trickles down to the customers. So very similar to what a lot of the restaurateurs have done. We send out newsletters, we have it on our website, we tell people what we do and the procedures and protocols that we expect from our customers. We're starting to now ask customers, which we hadn't done before, that when we do approach the table, we'd really appreciate if they were to raise their mask as well. And some will happily do it, others won't. I'm not going to get into fights with people, but I think the common courtesy is important. But it's we still have a long road ahead of us, and I just I don't have the definitive answer. I'd be curious to know as well, with some of the kitchen issues and training, maybe the other 2 panelists could chime in really quick if they have any tricks on getting people to remember as they stand in space, if they pull their mask down, what is it, just a reminder? Is there penalty in place? I'd be curious to see what maybe Tyler or Juliana have to say about that.
Well, my husband, we kind of have like an open kitchen, so customers can see in to the line. We have our pizza chef is visible, but he's, thankfully, when we built the restaurant, we put glass in front of him, so he's kind of in his own little enclosed space. And we actually did have a case where it was our pizza chef did test positive for COVID. Well, gosh, it was like a month in it, September. I can't remember anymore. It was like last month. And thankfully, he's in his own space, so he doesn't really have anybody working next to him other than the food runner, but he's pretty far apart from him. So we did have to close down. He was asymptomatic. He just went for a random test. So, we had to deal with that. We did shut down for 5 days. We had a sanitation company come in, did extra sanitizing, although we have sanitizer all over the restaurant, in the kitchen, the guys they're wiping down constantly. It's hard on a line. in smaller kitchens, I mean, I'm not on the line. I go in the morning, nobody's there. I bake, I do the desserts, so I don't have to deal with that issue. But I give kudos to all the guys that are on the line working, because it's hard, it's hot. This summer, it was brutal. The guys with their masks on. I mean, my guys had to constantly go outside, take a breather, change their masks because they were soaked. I mean, and the biggest, one that we have to reprimand all the time is my husband, who's on the line because he's a pain in the ass, and he's like a showman. So he's always back there and he'll do the little, and I'm like yelling at him, like, can you don't do this, like, don't. So I have to reprimand him more than anybody else. The guys are pretty good about it. I'm pretty much, he's kind of more laid back. I'm more of a stickler. So I think the staff is a little bit more fearful of me because I don't have any problems of, calling people out on what they're doing. Whether it's, the staff in the back of house, the guys in the kitchen, or the floor staff. We've also confronted customers in the sense of, in a polite way, but, we've had people make reservations saying, oh, I'm flying in, I'm I might be late for my reservation. And I'm like, well, where are you flying in from? Cause if you're on somebody who's on a travel ban, I really don't want you coming to dine at the restaurant to protect other customers and staff, because I think people just don't think. So it's kind of, that whole thing. But like I said, if you're going to back of house again in the kitchen, I mean, you just got to kind of be on everybody. Everybody's constantly reminding one another. We also have policy that everybody, once they walk in the door, we take temperatures for all the staff. And we had told everyone, if you are not feeling well, I don't care if it's a sniffle, a cough, tickle in the back of your throat, do not come to work. It sucks because sometimes we're already short staffed, and we just had a sous chef just left us, just like that one day. That happened last week, which really sucked. So it forced my husband to be back into the kitchen. We're down, we're making it work because we're still busy with curbside and dining, but it's just a hard time. So, I mean, you just got to kind of keep on everyone, and we have our staff getting tested every 2 weeks. Hopefully we won't run out of tests in the state of Connecticut. That's a worry that we have. So, I mean, and we also tell our staff, like you have, really watch where you're going. We tell people, please don't do large gatherings. Please don't go hang out with a bunch of friends, because it's going to affect everyone. And, shutting down for 5 days, that really hurt us. It was awful. And, you just have to, be as diligent with everyone. And it sucks, I mean, I didn't go in last week because my youngest daughter wasn't feeling well. We both got tested twice, which, we came out negative, but, I couldn't go into work. So it's, you have to set the example too for your employees, I think. I mean, there's only so much we can do to kind of rein people in. Hopefully our staff is going to have the good sense to follow those rules, but you can't, how are you going to, enforce it completely? How do you know where everybody's going to go? And that's something that we're going to have to deal with. What are your thoughts, Tyler?
I think we've kind of infused sort of a prison mentality amongst our staff, in that they're self-policing their cell blocks. We moved them. So we have 3 kitchens. Well, we had 3 kitchens, now we have 2. So we've been able to spread them. Again, we have a little more space, right? So space helps. But every week we talk about how I think restaurants are going to get shut down. I talk about how I think that everyone should be saving their money because they're all working overtime right now. And I talk about how awful it would be to get shut down before we get shut down. So that 5 days you're referring to, that's like nightmare, right? So being shut down for those 5 days before we get shut down is obviously taking, no one gets paid if that happens. So if someone's wearing their mask improperly, it seems like they're self-policing each other, and they're like, get your fucking mask on, dick. Like nobody wants to be that. No one wants to be the jerk caught with their mask down. Honestly, I'm the worst at it because, like you said, Bill, tasting. It's like I go back and forth, and it's like, especially with barbecue, your hands are all dirty and it's like, whatever. But you know, that's kind of working. It's about once a week we have a meeting that we just State of the Union, and we just talk about how important it is. Save your money, be safe.
To that point, Tyler, Bill, and Juliana, and I think everyone listening in, because I talk about this a lot. You guys seem to meet with your staffs, and you have, seems a great relationship and open dialogue, which is something I preach on all the restaurants. But you know, have you had the like COVID specific conversation with them? Like, I feel like there's a lot of staff that don't understand like the jeopardy they can be in, but if they are sick and they do have it, like they are protected too. Like there are, you know, you guys have the FFCRA, you know, to pay them being home and everything else but have you had that conversation? Or, you know, I hear some restaurants are like, oh, well, you know, do I need to tell my staff if there's a positive case or just the people in close contact? Did you ever have a conversation with them? But what have you had it, and do you constantly have it, I guess, to them? Because obviously the rising cases, it's not like 0.7, 0.8% anymore. Whereas a chance you could get it, like, I mean, there's thousands of people that are testing positive in our state every single day. So I don't know who wants to take that first, but I'm just curious to know the conversations you're having.
Yeah, I could jump in really quick. Just we had a situation similar to Juliana a couple weeks ago where we had a positive cook, untraceable positive cook. I mean, this dude, he's one of our sous chefs, great young guy. All he does is work and go home. He worked in close proximity with myself in the kitchen at Dom Amo. We don't have the luxury of a Millwright's kitchen. I've been there before. That is like COVID heaven. You know, so, and nobody else. So what we did, we had to shut down for 2 days. And at that point, that first shutdown, I had paid everybody, other than, you know, some of the hourly employees that just hadn't clocked in, but salary workers and some other employees had gotten paid. We weren't able to trace it. It was a really tough situation. We have had to have the unfortunate conversation very recently to make sure, similar to what Tyler just said, to make sure everybody understands what's happening here. If we go through another closure because of a positive case, you know, it doesn't mean that everybody gets to go home and we pay them again. You know, the people that are protected under the act will get paid. We'll get our tax deduction or tax write-off, whatever that means. But otherwise, you know, unfortunately, you're going to go home and, you know, you won't get the hours served. You won't get paid for it. So just keep reminding them of that and making that. That's a terrible conversation to have with people. You're just preparing them for the worst constantly in an industry where I think what makes restaurants most successful is when they're positive and productive and thinking about new ways of changing our cuisine or our ambiance, whatever it may be. That stuff is all taken sort of backseat to just protection mode and doom and gloom. And, you know, if you don't take care of yourself and if you don't do the right thing, this is what's going to happen, and you won't get paid and your friends won't get paid and your peers won't get paid and you'll bring down the restaurant, you know, and it's just become really difficult. And, you know, when you sit on a November rainy, cold day, you're going into work and you're just thinking to yourself, what are we doing here? You know, the reason I got into restaurants and food was because I just love the art of it. I love the creative side of it. And I love making people happy. I love nothing more than me and my team doing something really special and people are appreciative of it and they love it and they walk out with a big smile on their face. And that's taken a back seat to what we do, unfortunately, you know, and we're just in protection mode all the time. So I just think the conversations are constant and everybody here knows it. And if you're not talking about it, you're doing yourself a disservice and the rest of the people in your company. That's kind of how we're dealing with it.
All right. Well, I know we are starting to run short on time and everyone's time is precious. I know, you know, we put up to 11:30, but I don't know if I asked everybody for that on just the Zoom call. I don't want to keep you guys. I know you guys with your restaurants and things like that. You know, so as I see a quick question real quick on touch base and the proper regulation and vessel for to-go alcoholic beverages, for example, does the alcohol have to be separate or can it all be mixed in one vessel? So the answer to that is, I believe it's just a sealed container, right? And maybe one of you guys can jump in. So anything that's sealed, we really fought hard to make sure that it wasn't, you know, really difficult, I guess. I think if we try to make this, so everyone knows, a longer term to-go alcohol, like some other states have done, we're going to probably have to work through that, which as an
Mhm.
association, we'll figure out what can work for you guys or with vendors or things like that. But right now it's sealed, a lid on it. I don't think that there has to be much more than that. But again, understand, that's the current guidelines. I think if we try to do long-term, so anything sealed, plastic cup with a lid on top that's closed, without a straw in it, I would say that would work. So just as long as they're sealed is the biggest part to that kind of changed from early on. If you guys remember, it had to be like from the manufacturer and everything else. So that's our language in Connecticut. It kind of makes it a little bit easier, which we tried to not go through red tape. But obviously, as we talk with DCP longer term, I think it's definitely, we're going to have to figure out some other creative solutions with that. So good question. All right. So before we go, I just want to give everyone kind of one last question, to each of you guys. And Juliana, I'll start with you. Obviously we talked about your biggest fear, but trying to be optimistic and what's the one takeaway? And Tyler, you kind of answered some of the two good things, but what is there something good that you've learned from this process as a restaurateur and everything else that you're taking with you, that means a lot to you in this industry, over the last 8 months?
Well, one thing we're really grateful for is one, being a part of this association, because you guys do tremendous work. Anytime, Scott, Yvette, Ryan O'Donnell, like anytime we've run into something, I felt you guys had our backs, and you were really great on answering a lot of, questions that we were just going into the unknown, and to have you guys, be there for us, that was great. Other restaurateurs in our community, everybody's rallied together. Like Bill has said, it's been really cool to talk to other restaurant people, see what they're going through, what they're doing, bounce ideas off each other, call each other, reach out to each other. I don't know, maybe, if someone needs to ask me something, DM me on Instagram or Facebook or something. At least we have each other's back, and also know that customers, around our area, a lot of people aren't traveling, so they're willing to spend the money at the restaurant. We have seen that. It's been really cool because we did wine dinners. Actually, our wine dinners this year were like awesome. People wanted something to do, and having those wine dinners, everybody had to sit. We usually used to do our old wine dinners was a communal table. Well, of course you can't do that now. So we used the 10. That was awesome because we got to sit everyone at a separate table. So everybody was socially distanced, but we found out that people want to support you and they will spend that money to come to an experience that you're providing. And I think that's a really cool thing in a venue to look forward to. We're looking to do prepared foods right now because we're afraid of being shut down. So we're going to hopefully launch by the end of the month an online ordering system where we're going to be opened now Monday and Tuesdays for hopefully towards the end of this month, just solely for prep foods. So we're, now we have this challenge of what can we make for prep foods that we don't want it to be what we serve on the menu. So it's going to be a little different, so it does, it's really been a process, and it's great because it makes you think of the future and look at different venues. And I think, it's forcing you to be a little bit more creative. And I think a lot of cool things are going to come. I mean, look at Tyler, you're doing like the truck stuff. That's amazing. That's really, really cool. And I didn't even think of that. And we need to have these conversations and talk to one another to keep that support going. I mean, this organization is so important to have. My cousin's down in Stamford. He's got a restaurant in Greenwich and Westport, and we call each other constantly. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What do you think? You need to have those conversations. We need to support each other as a community and really, energize your customer base, because they will be there to support you and they will spread the love. I tell customers all the time, like, thank you for supporting us. Don't forget the guy down the street, or don't forget, John at Lives, and don't forget Fresh Salt, and they refer people to us. So we need to support one another. I think it's just super important at this stage. And, and it's important to reach out to the guys here at the Connecticut Restaurant Association, because they have your backs and, your concerns. I mean, we have a lot of concerns, like even with the liquor stuff right now, it sucked. That was a big sucky thing for us. All your liquor bills are converging at the same time. That sucks. It was like another hit. it was like, oh shit, my 90 days now, my 60 days and 30-day bills are all coming into the same week. What can you do? So it's like a constant. And, like Bill said, going back to that, it's about keeping people safe, about staying in business, being creative. We need to keep these conversations going. We need to support one another, because it's the only way we're going to get through this. And it's really sad when you find out that another restaurant is closing, because it's part of our community. We are really essential within our own communities, and we need to keep that going. People rely on us for a lot of things, for their own stress relief, customers coming in. That's important. People want an experience. They want to forget the bullshit that they're going through. But we have to keep our staff safe. We have to keep them safe. We put like another sanitation filtration system in the restaurant. Was it money you wanted to spend? No, but you have to do it sometimes. You have to spend the money sometimes to be able to come through it. And it's hard at this moment, but it's going to work. You just got to keep at it. I mean, that's all I can say.
Juliana, that was great. I appreciate the plug, but obviously for you and what you guys have gone through. So Bill, and your thoughts?
Yeah, quickly. First of all, I wanted to just second that what Juliana had said at CRA, and Scott, what you have done and how you've led this organization, this group from March is, with Yvette and Nicole and Ryan, and I think, a bit of an unsung hero, Dan, out there fighting for us. You guys have just been amazing. I think, for anybody that's taken advantage of those calls from the day this pandemic started until back in March and April, when we're on 6 and 5 day a week calls every morning with so much to talk about. I just don't know if we would have got through it as successful as we did if it wasn't for you guys doing that and updating us and really fighting for us. So I appreciate that. And I would just say, I think we've learned how much, Juliana just said it, how much our communities rely on us, and this is a real serious thing. But to see the support that's come out gives, just as somebody that's been in this industry for so long, it's the only thing I've ever done outside of high school. And what has happened the last couple months is a lot of reassurance that what we do is right and people appreciate it and it doesn't go unnoticed. And the love that we have for our community is reciprocal and it comes back to us. And that's, I think that will be forever. That goes on forever, that sort of unearthing of support and consumer confidence and just how you can really help the trust that we have for each other, customer and restaurant. So those things I think we can only build on, and they're going to make us stronger as restaurants. And if you take advantage of them, hopefully you will. If you take advantage of them, I think you'll be better for it. So there's a lot of good that came out of this. We're not done with it yet, but there's definitely a lot of good stuff that's coming out of this. So I just look forward to maybe May, April when it gets warm. That's what I'm looking for at this point.
Thanks, Bill. Tyler?
I mean, I echo both of their sentiments, certainly with what you guys at the CRA and Dan have done. I guess you weren't expecting all this when you took this job, were you, Scott? You thinking about early retirement yet? Please don't. Seeing the support of our guests has been an amazing thing. Seeing how our restaurant employee family have rallied around each other has been an amazing thing. I think that there are 4 things sort of that have come out of this that are, well, I don't know if there's 4 or not. Number 1, less rules. I think that we're allowed to do more of what we want to do. I think the cocktail thing will be with us for a while, and I would encourage other restaurateurs to continue to exploit that. We've created a canned cocktail company that does delivery now. Basically a manufacturing facility in one of our restaurants that cans cocktails, and guess what? That's legal now. It would have taken thousands and thousands of dollars to do before, because I was trying to do it before all this. Number 2, I think there's going to be less legislation against restaurants once we come out of all this. I would certainly hope. Maybe you'll get a little bit of a break when this is all done. Number 3, I think the demand for restaurants is going to be very, very high once the world comes back to normal. Number 4, and this is a terrible thing to have to say, and I fucking hate it, but there's going to be less competition. It sucks, but and you know what? I may be one of those people who's out of business and is not included in the competition pool. But in a lot of restaurant markets, Manhattan is one that I can certainly say for a fact, like a lot of cities, it was impossible to run a restaurant. And this reset is going to make it possible for people to run restaurants in those areas again. And it sucks and it's terrible. And I hate to see any restaurant go out of business. But at the end of the day, I think that if you can make it through this, that you'll be sitting in a better place, not only because there'll be less rules, less legislation, less competition, and generally a dining public that's much more excited about real life again.
Awesome. Couldn't agree more, Tyler. I think, you hit those 4 points, and there were 4, which is perfect. All right.
Lucked out.
What we're dealing with. Listen, I obviously I'd love to stay on this call for 3 hours because I know there's questions starting to pop up, which I appreciate in the chat. And I think we're learning that this is valuable. I'd love to hear feedback from our members of continuing to put on leaders in our industry, which starting with these 3 is definitely without question leaders within our state that are really driving the charge of what they're trying to do individually, but also helping each other. I think what I've learned in 2.5 years in this role, it definitely got accelerated in the last 8 months. But I do think the sense of unity is stronger than ever, that you guys are looking out for each other. They use the CRA as that resource of connecting. If you guys have questions for Tyler, Juliana, Bill, anybody else, hey, Scott, I saw that, John Nealon's doing this down at Taco Daddy, as Bill mentioned, trying to connect you guys, because I know everybody is trying to help each other. Rising tide rises all ships right now, and trying to survive this pandemic as an industry. And I need your guys' help as we continue to move forward. Other things that I'm going to be trying to do is to increase, if they're going to roll us back, God forbid we have to go back beyond where we are now, the state has to step up for our industry, and we have to be a loud voice together, united, asking for that, like other states are starting to do. And we're looking at possibly a press event next week, now that I'm not going to Florida, where we need to tell the truth to our state and to the media about what's really happening out there with the landscape of our industry. And we're going to try to do that and put that together. As I look to the side, we're going to have some other webinars. Some might not be that much fun. I know the Connecticut Paid Family Leave new act where you have to take out of your payroll 0.5% starting on January 1st is still coming through, thanks to legislation. So we'll have to talk about that issue. We'll talk about DRS's new process, hopefully to make it easy for you guys on the tax side. At least these state agencies, to Tyler's point, are reaching out to us where they're like, hey, we want to be a partner. That never was happening prior to this pandemic. I wouldn't be able to call DPH in Farmington Valley and say, why are you making this so difficult for Tyler? Why are you dealing with this down in Stanford, making them cover their food? Like before that, I'm like, go pound sand. Now I can get to the right people to say, no, this is not right. We need to help them survive. So the red tape has been great, but obviously we have to keep pushing forward with this administration, being a loud voice together, continuing to tell others that aren't members, this is all a membership call. I need each of you guys to be sales teams for us. When you know of restaurants down the street that aren't members, I'm not asking for their dues right now. Like even for you guys, if you can't pay it, I get it. But having them get involved and be on these calls or get involved in other ways are going to matter coming through this and coming out of this. So, I kind of end there. I see Keith's question. I think, I don't think there's an easy answer to that, Keith, about, losing the outdoor side and how you keep your payroll numbers close. I think that's why I'm hearing of a lot of layoffs or cutting hours. Or, I know the shared work program is something we all need to look into a little bit more. But it's a challenge out there. So, listen, I definitely have other questions that came in on a private side that we can answer later, but obviously I want to be conscious of time today. So thank you so much, Tyler, Bill, and Juliana, for spending time this morning on a Friday morning as we lead into the weekend. Listen, I want you guys to know too, I'm here to be your support as an association. There's not a question I won't try to answer or figure out a solution to for you guys, and continue to let me know how else I can help. Even if it's small on an issue you have in your town, to your restaurant, to a staff member, to a legislative issue on a state level. Nicole, I know, is listening in. I think Nicole's on this morning. We already had a call this morning about the 30, 60, 90-day extension piece, Juliana, that we are trying to go back to bat to get it back because of these rollbacks. So understand that every idea or question you guys have, it helps when we know, hey, what are your big concerns right now, or what's making it difficult, that we can hopefully go and work with legislation or EOs to get past, to make it a little bit easier. But understand too, we are in a unique, last comment, we're in a unique situation right now, as you guys know. We don't have a legislative session. We don't have legislative leaders. We have the governor. We have the governor's administration. There's days where I can applaud them and they're helping us. And there's days where I want to strangle them, because like yesterday with the DPH report and Josh Cabral not even sending it to anybody and getting that out. So it's a constant balance that I have to work. But I promise you, as Bill likes to say, he likes angry Scott or fired up Scott. Like I do behind the scenes push as hard as I can on this administration. Obviously publicly with the media and with them, I have to walk that fine line, but I can tell you there's been definitely some blowups. And recently as yesterday, making sure that they know, we need these restaurants to survive. You need them to survive. If you're going to put out false reports, or you're not going to help them financially, like, we're going to go after you, because at the end of the day, like, we need these small businesses have to survive for Connecticut to make it through this pandemic. So we'll continue to be fighting for you guys. Thank you all again. And we'll have another webinar hopefully soon. But thank you three for your time. And outside of that, I will talk to everybody over the weekend. I wish everyone well in these cold weather. Hopefully you guys still have a strong weekend, and we'll continue to try to build consumer confidence any way that we can.
Thanks, Scott. Thanks, guys.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys. Thanks.